comes a new challenger!
The worldwide release of Riftbound's inaugural set is upon us, and as with most TCGs, a new set release is accompanied with set release events at your local game stores. You can use Riftbound's events page to find listings for release events happening in your area. But maybe you don't just want to play in your local release event, maybe you want to win it all and take home some sweet prizes. If that sounds like you, then this video will have all the information you need to do just that. In this video, we will break down the release event format and which strategies are the most optimal for success so that you know exactly how to win your Set 1 Origins release event. Let's talk a bit about the format. For Set 1, the main format for release events is Modified Champion Deck. What this means is that you get one of the 3 pre-constructed decks as well as 2 booster packs to modify your deck. The champion decks also come with a booster pack inside of them for a total of 3 booster packs. When going over the 3 champion deck lists, we will include the top commons, uncommons, and rares to be on the lookout for in your booster pools for upgrades in those domains. First up is Jinx. The goal of this deck is to go first and go fast. Jinx is an aggressive deck that can discard cards from the hand to accelerate its game plan, and Jinx's legend ability allows you to spend those resources and recuperate your losses next turn by drawing additional cards when your hand size is 1 or less. Cards like Flame Chompers give you additional value when paying your discard costs and helping you overwhelm your opponent with a wide board of mid-range units. Unfortunately, like in the competitive meta, Jinx falls a little flat in this format. Your legend ability isn't that strong to begin with, as getting rid of cards from your hand to draw new cards the following turn is just a prolonged loot ability, and you don't really have any real payoff outside of Flame Chompers and maybe Rasa for cycling aggressively through your deck. In addition, within these pre-constructed formats, the Jinx deck is far more clunky than its constructed version, as there are many higher cost cards in the deck than the average Jinx deck would run, meaning that your hand will get clogged full of expensive units at times, and outside of your champion unit you will not have any other way to aggressively dump them, which means your legend is essentially blank for most of the game. Cards like Scrap Heap and Cemetery Attendant are also kind of antithetical to what Jinx wants to do, as they keep your hand size healthy and ensure that your leader stays blank. The deck does have a few pros to go with all these cons. Its removal suite is actually good for this slower format. Gust and Void Seeker are premium constructed cards, and Fading Memories can help you deal with units that normally you would never be able to kill, like Mountain Drake in Lee Sin's precon. The deck also comes with 7 2-drops versus the other deck's 6, making it more consistent at hitting that crucial turn 1 play. Vi is one of the strongest closer units in the game, and if you pull a Ride the Wind in your boosters, you'll have access to one of the best game-ending combos in the format. With all that being said, unless your store is giving out randomized precons or some other reason arises that would force you to play the Jinx deck, if given the choice, I would not pick the Jinx deck for my release event starter, especially if I'm trying to win. But in case you are stuck with her, or you really want to play Jinx and pick up her starter deck, then we're still going to go over the top cards to cut from the list, as well as the ones to keep an eye out for in your booster pack for upgrades. First up on the chopping block is Magma Worm. This unit is simply just too big for what we're trying to do, unless you think that you need a massive unit to throw into your opponent's Mountain Drakes, which you're still going to need another card on top of this in order to do, then I think that this is just an easy cut. Next up, Undercover Agent. This unit's just pretty clunky. Cost of power, it's not really powerful as far as might goes. It's just pretty much overall very unimpactful unless it dies, and you typically just don't want your higher cost units to die like that unless you're getting a really good payoff, which this card is not. Next up is Cemetery Attendant. This guy's stats are fine for his cost, but he costs the power, which is just not really where you want to be in the early game. You also need something in the bin for this guy to actually be castable and actually with some upside. And then again, like we already mentioned, when you do cast him, he picks up cards into your hand, which is kind of turning off your leader because you want to have less cards in your hand. If you have a lot of resources, of course, you can play whatever you picked up to keep yourself at low resources, but again, it's just another clunky card and easy chop. The Blazing Scorcher is a perfectly serviceable unit. You don't mind keeping these in if you don't have anything better to replace it, but it's really not that impressive. 5 for 5 is okay, and the Accelerate can come in handy. But again, this is just kind of a little bit pricey for the deck, and you can definitely find better cards in these colors. Finally, Scrap Heap. Again, drawing cards is just not really what we want to be doing. Yes, it's kind of cool that we get to draw an extra card when we discard this to pay for our discard costs, which kind of keep us at parity in resources, which is kind of like what our legend does, but again, then that still means that our legend isn't really getting any value, and we'd rather have actual cards in our deck than cards that require a discard outlet to be good, because we don't have a ton of those in general. Let's go over the top 5 commons we're hoping to pull. First up, Ride the Wind. This is part of that 2-part close the game combo with your Vi. This card makes your Vi infinitely more valuable, and you can hold this 2-card combo in your hand to make sure that your Vi doesn't die to your opponent's removal spells. And then when you're at 6 points and you're ready to close the game, you could just play the Vi down, send your whole discard back to the deck, play the Ride the Wind, and close the game. It's just one of the most powerful things that you can do in this entire color combo, and it's only a common, so you're really hoping to pull at least one of these. Next up is Cleave. This is just one of the best combat tricks in red. This is being played as a 2 or 3 of in pretty much every red deck right now. It's just so much power on the offense. Basically is kind of a removal spell because it actually makes you able to trade favorably into your opponent's large units for very low costs and still be able to develop something afterwards back in your base. The cheapness of Cleave also makes it a really effective card in Jinx because it's just another card that you can easily weave into your curve and play cheaply so that you can get low in resources and start drawing cards with your legend ability. Noxus Hopeful is a great mid-range unit with high upside. We would love to pull some copies of this guy. He's definitely best when combined with another 2-drop or a cheap card like Cleave so that you could just play him on the cheap. And when this guy is played for cheap, and with this guy being able to make himself so cheap, it's just another way to play a lot of cards in a single turn, which helps you get to low resources so that you can keep drawing cards with Jinx. Next up is Legion Rearguard. This is just a great 2-drop. Your deck really wants more 2-drops. Of course, you can fill this slot with other things like Pouty Poro, or maybe the Vision Poro, or more copies of Vi. Like really, you just do want more 2-drops overall. But in the common slot, I would be most happy to be pulling the Legion Rearguard in this slot because the accelerate ability is really nice and can help close out games, especially if your opponent does not see it coming. And finally, for the commons, we have Sneaky Deckhand. This card is a sneaky way to get point tempo, whether you're going first and trying to get to 2 points on turn 2, or just play this straight into a point on turn 1 and score right away if you're going second. Sneaky Deckhand is overall a very good card in these colors and a great pickup in the common slot. Next up, we'll cover the top 5 uncommons. First up is Void Seeker. We already have 2 Void Seekers in the deck, but if you find another Void Seeker, you'll be happy to put that in. It's one of the best and most efficient removal spells in this color, and it replaces itself. It's so good, and you're happy to see more copies. Next up is Stack Deck. Stack Deck is a really cheap and effective spell that helps you pull whatever cards you need out of your deck very efficiently. It's also action speed, so you can play it during combats if you just have one up. It adds a lot of consistency, and in a limited format, that's exactly what you need. So you're happy to play as many copies of this card as you can pull. Next up, we've got the Arena's Greatest. This is a great battlefield for aggressive strategies. It helps you gain an additional point, which puts your opponent on a really fast clock and makes aggressive decks even scarier. You're happy to swap out Targon's Peak for this easily. A perfectly serviceable card is also Dangerous Duo. This is another cheaper mid-range unit, 3 for 3, with some pretty good upside if you can manage to cast some cheap cards like Stack Deck or Cleave alongside of it. Or if you're going second, you can cast this guy along with a 2-drop and pump up your turn 1 play. You're not ecstatic to see this guy, but he's definitely a serviceable unit in this limited format. Finally, you've got the Sun Disk. This is a perfectly fine gear that has some high upside depending on how many times you can trigger it, and in this deck, especially if you can pull a lot of lower costed cards in your boosters, the Sun Disk can provide a ton of value and allow you to get really aggressive really fast. For the top 5 rares that you'd like to see, first up we've got Darius. This is just one of the best mid-range units in the game. It's super fast and aggressive, being paired with any 2-drop to essentially put a 7 might haste unit on the board right away is just so strong, especially in that 6 to 8 turn range as far as runes go. With the bigger units that your opponent can be playing, especially in the Lee Sin deck, this guy will just help you trade over all of them and still keep a sizable body in the battlefield once it's all said and done. Of course, no list in red would be complete without Falling Star. This is just one of the best cards in the game, one of the most broken cards in the game. You want as many copies of these as you can pull, and you're happy to play every single one. You certainly wouldn't mind pulling a few more copies of Vi Destructive, especially if you have copies of Ride the Wind in your pools. Every copy of Vi and Ride the Wind in your deck adds to the consistency of this insanely powerful game-ending combo. Teemo Scout is an interesting one that started to surge up in some of the Chinese Jinx lists, and for good reason. This is just a very cheap card that you can hide without actually having to pay energy, because you can use power to pay for hiddens, and it's a great combat trick. +4 for 1 power and no energy is really strong. You just do have to control the battlefield, so of course if you don't control the battlefield, this card's a lot worse, but it's just a really cheap way to dump your hand really quickly and still get value rather than having to discard it because you're actually casting it to the board. Last up is Vain Hunter. This is just another great aggressive unit that helps you trade effectively over your opponent's stuff and can go back to your hand if you don't want to keep it in the battlefield so that you can do it again next turn. Now let's take a look at the Lee Sin deck. The Lee Sin Champion deck is a mid-range centric deck revolving around the buff mechanic. Unlike Jinx, this leader is never blank unless your entire board already has a buff on it, or you have no units in play. Being able to give a permanent +1 might to any unit is a strong ability that can make it really difficult for your opponent to make effective trades. The game plan with Lee Sin is to hold battlefields with big numbers. Lee Sin probably has the best suite of battlefields of the 3 precons for what he is trying to do, though Targon's Peak can definitely be replaced. Your Champion Legend is a constant large threat with Accelerate, which is a very strong play your opponent must always consider when you get to the 7 or more energy turns. His second line of text might not come up too often, but it's certainly not a bad effect. He only has 6 2-drops in his deck, and you'll hope to open more in your packs, but the 2 in your deck are the best 2-drops in this color pair. First Mate is another great early game unit and easily one of the best 3-drops in the entire game, and you get 3 copies of him. Unfortunately, from there, the rest of your units are pretty lackluster. Wielder of Water and Wildclaw Shaman are okay at best, and Mountain Drake is a massive unit that is tough to deal with in a limited format such as this, but it's not a great card overall, especially against cards like Viktor's Hidden Blade. The rest of your units are just chaff, and you are happy to cut them. The deck does have some solid interaction spells like Charm and Challenge, which can help you snipe units at battlefield or even the base, which is really strong especially in limited formats. Discipline is also one of the best combat tricks in the game right now and helps you protect your large bodies or run over your opponent's bodies without losing card advantage. I think one of the biggest things that holds Lee Sin back in this limited format is his lack of Defy in the deck. Without this card, you have no way to stop Viktor from using Hidden Blade or Cull the Weak to wreak havoc on your expensive units, and you typically are only able to play about 1 unit per turn in this deck, which is exactly where Viktor wants you to be. Because of this, I would also not recommend that you pick up the Lee Sin deck if you are trying to win your release event, unless there are no other options or if your only other option is Jinx. With that being said, he's definitely not a bad precon, and with some solid fundamentals, or with a few copies of Defy or Zhonya's Hourglass pulled in your boosters, you might consider playing him. You definitely have a real shot at winning the event. The top 5 cards we are looking to cut for upgrades are as follows. Bilgewater Bully is a 6 might unit for 6, which is okay, and he gets ganking when he has a buff on him, which is also okay. He's just a little too expensive for a card that really doesn't have the ability to swing a board too much. The ganking might come in handy every now and then, but overall this is just an unimpressive and a little bit of an overcosted card, which puts it up on the chopping block. Stormclaw Ursine is another 6 might unit, but a pretty expensive one. You can't really play this on turn 4, you can play this on turn 3 if you're going second, but that's assuming you've spent no power whatsoever. It does channel you a Ruin when it hits the board, which is pretty nice. This card is simply too expensive for what you get out of it, and comes down way too late for the tank or 6 might body to be super relevant. I would cut this unit for something more effective or more cheap units. Next up, we got the Pack-a-Cub. This is a perfectly fine early game unit. It can be a nice combat trick that might surprise your opponents sometime, just being able to cheat out a body for a power. But a lot of times this guy is just a 3 for 3, which is not too great, but he is better than some of the more expensive clunkier cards in this deck, so if it's between him or one of those cards, I would probably cut the more expensive cards first. Wizened Elder is just kind of a slightly overstated beat stick, but he does require a buff for him to actually get to those stats, which isn't too bad. 5 energy for 6 is okay. This is again just another okay card in the deck. Cut this if you get better cards. Last up is Stand United. This card is okay in Lee Sin, and maybe you want to play like 1 copy of this card, but unless you get to use his Epic Champion promo or you pull one in your packs, then you're never going to have a ton of buffs out, so often this card is just a slightly more expensive discipline that does not draw you a card. Top 5 commons we would love to pull and put in our deck. Gotta start this list off with Defy. Again, if this card was actually in our deck, I would consider Lee Sin to be a potential winning deck pick, and maybe even the best deck in the format. This card stops pretty much every relevant spell in the game for just 1 mana. It's really easy to leave up 1 mana. I would definitely play as many copies of Defy as I pull in my packs. Next up, let's talk about Clockwork Keeper. This is just another great 2-drop with high upside in the late game, making it so that it doesn't feel bad pulling this guy off the top of the deck, because you get to just draw a new card when you play him, and you don't mind putting the power back that late in the game. Just a really solid 2-drop, though I would recommend playing any other 2-drops if you don't get copies of this guy to at least get yourself to about 8 or 9 2s. On Guard is a very cheap and effective combat trick. Again, it's really easy to leave just 1 mana up, and this card makes cards like Wielder of Water and Stalwart Poro nightmares to attack into in the early game. If you manage to pull a Dreaming Tree Battlefield, this card gets even more value, and I would highly recommend playing it at least in the game where you're playing the Dreaming Tree. Overall, just a good card. Find Your Center is one of the best ramp cards in the game, and again, a lot of our units in our deck are kind of clunky, they're a little bit expensive. This card makes it feel not as bad playing more expensive cards because you get to those turns way sooner, and you don't lose too much steam because you get to draw an additional card when you do it. Last card on the list is Charm. We already have 2 charms in the deck, but you know, we would love a 3rd copy. This is just one of the best and most effective removal spells, especially when your deck has high might units. You want as many copies of this card as possible, so if you pull 1 more charm, make sure to throw that bad boy in. I'm gonna be honest, there wasn't a lot of uncommons that I was stoked to put in Lee Sin, but I was still able to find at least 5 cards that I would be happy to put into the list, so let's run those down real quick. First up is Kinko Monk. This card is a staple in set decks and just a very good buff generator overall. You do have a much easier time getting buffs in Lee Sin because you have access to his legend ability, but you can never really get enough buffs, and this unit has a sizable body itself, which Lee Sin can also buff. Just a really strong mid-range card. Catalyst of Aeons is another insane ramp spell. This card lets you ramp a full turn ahead in ruins, and going second, if you play this on your 5 ruin turn, you'll go up to 7 and untap at 9 next turn, making it possible to just drop your Mountain Drake on turn 3, which is really hard to deal with. The last 3 cards on this list are battlefields. First up, Reaver's Row. This is an okay battlefield you wouldn't mind swapping out your Targon's Peak for. The biggest issue with Lee Sin in this format is that he invests a lot of energy into his units, and you don't want them to die too easily on the crackback, so Reaver's Row allows you to play around your opponent's offensive cards or assault creatures and keep your strong units for next turn's swing. Hallowed Tomb is another perfectly viable option. Both Lee Sin champions are really strong, and having the ability to use them multiple times, that can get a lot of value, especially in a deck that has a lot of holding potential like this one. And finally, we have the Dreaming Tree. This card can help you just draw a ton of cards on one of your games. You have challenges in the deck, you have disciplines in the deck, you have Stand United, so you already have a large amount of cards in your pre-con that work with this, and you'd be happy to put this in the deck even if you didn't get more copies of On Guard or other cards. But if you do, then this card is even better value, and you're super stoked to see this alongside a couple On Guards. This is probably one of the best battlefields. If I had the option between the 3 battlefields listed here so far, I think that it's a no-brainer that the Dreaming Tree would be the one that I would pick over the rest to swap out with my Targon's Peak. Finally, we have the rares. Tasty Faithful is an insane rare. This card is way better than Stormclaw Ursine. The Accelerate makes this unit a really sizable and constant threat, and your opponent is not happy when they have to deal with it because they usually have to trade a bunch of resources, and then you get a card back as well as going super deep into your ruins, allowing you to play Mountain Drakes and other big things while still being able to hold up mana, which can just feel insurmountable for your opponent. Another great rare is Kiana Victorious. This unit just kind of does it all. It draws you cards, it can channel your ruins if you're trying to play your high cost units, the deflect is nothing to snuff at, and against Jinx, Lee Sin can buff it to put it out of range of their Void Seeker, which makes it even tougher to deal with and even more annoying to target. Primal Strength is a bonkers combat trick that pretty much ensures that you'll be able to trade with anything, and if your opponent commits multiple units to a battlefield, you can just blow them out with this one card and get a 2 or a 3 for 1 and still keep your unit. Just a really absurd, powerful combat trick. You'd be happy to have a few in your deck. Zanya's Hourglass is one of the best gears in the game. It can be hidden, which makes it really great, being able to just save a big unit for a single power, or you can pre-play this by just paying 2 energy and putting it into play to reserve its effect for later. However, if this is telegraphed in this way, then your opponent may be able to set up situations where they can kill something that's easy to kill first, which would force the Zanyas to trigger because it has to trigger as soon as it sees something die, and then they can use their real cards to actually take out the threat that they want to kill. So just be aware of that when casting this card to base. Finally on the list, we've got Carnivorous Snapvine. A 6 might unit for 5 is just really good stats. 2 power is pretty steep, but this guy is always going to kill something. Especially in this format, there's not a lot of other big units unless you are playing the Lee Sin Mirror. So against the other 2 decks, this guy is just going to kind of eat whatever he wants for free. Notably, against Viktor, they do have some copies of Smokescreen, which can completely hose this card, so be wary of playing this card into Viktor if they have 2 energy up, but other than that, the card is an absolute powerhouse, and you'd be happy to have 2 to 3 copies of this in your deck. Let's take a look at Viktor's deck. Viktor is a powerful deck with a board swarming strategy paired with cheap and powerful removal spells. His legend ability lets you play a token unit for the low cost of just 1 energy. This allows you to easily play 2 or more units per turn, which allows your deck to always have enough units to push at both battlefields each turn. These token units are expendable, and it feels great being able to score points while not having to commit and lose real cards in exchange like the other decks. Your smaller units can start to get outclassed pretty easily, but with great combat tricks like Stupefy, Back to Back, and Smokescreen, you can trade tokens for real units very easily. These combat tricks allow you to get a lot of value out of your chosen champion. If the units start to get too large for the combat tricks, do not worry, as you have 2 of Viktor's best removal spells in Cull the Weak and Hidden Blade, cheap and effective removal that can kill large units no matter what the size. Make sure to use Cull the Weak on units sent out to conquer on your side, as this deck's focus is not to hold but to swarm and conquer, and the token unit was going to be lost on the opponent's turn anyway. Wraith of Echoes is a solid way to turn your token cards into card advantage and should not be sent out to battle unless necessary. This deck is also capable of producing very large units for cheap using cards such as the Cruel Patron. Like Cull the Weak, make sure to sacrifice tokens in the battlefield after conquering when paying his costs, as they were likely to be lost on the opponent's turn anyway. The ultimate finisher of the deck is the Grand Stratagem, a spell that can be used on either player's turn to give every unit on the board plus 5 might for the turn. This can be used from 6 points to win the game on the offense with a wide board and running over anything in the battlefield with ease. You can also load up 1 or 2 battlefields with every unit you have and cast the stratagem on your opponent's turn to deny entry into the battlefields by creating a massive wall of big units and holding those battlefields until the next turn, where you will score the final points needed to win the match. Do not mulligan this card, as you only have 1 in the deck, and it is the best way for you to win the game. If you can't tell by all the glazing, this is by far the best starter deck in the entire limited format. It has everything you need to deal with any situation, as well as one of the strongest finisher spells in the game. Viktor is also giving you so much consistency and point tempo due to your draw sequence not mattering as much as the other decks, because you are able to produce a unit every single turn thanks to your legend ability. Viktor also has some insane bombs in his commons and uncommons that I feel are a cut above the rest, whose true power cards lie mostly in their rares. If you are trying to win your release event, then Viktor is the deck to choose if possible. Let's run down the cards we are looking to cut and add in. First up on the chopping block is Mushroom Pouch. This card is terrible. Take these out as fast as you can. It is a total brick. This effect never works, even if you have hidden cards. It's just a really bad card. You can check out our set review if you want to hear more about this, but I'm telling you, this card is a straight brick. You really want to take it out for anything, even a bad card. Most of your other bad cards are still going to be more playable than this card, so definitely cut both of these as your very first cuts no matter what. Next up is Orb of Regret. This card is not terrible. It can help your tokens make trades on little things and help you just be a little more efficient on the offense, but I don't think that this card is worth a whole card, especially where card advantage is kind of at a premium in these decks and we only have a few ways of drawing cards. There's just much better cards that you can be playing than this. If you pull very few of the cards on this list and you have to play a lot of the cards in your starter deck, it might make the cut. It's definitely better than Mushroom Pouch, but I would not be super happy to play with these. Sprite Call is another perfectly fine card that you don't totally mind playing. It can help you push points, especially if you went first, to make sure that you get that second point, and the token can be really annoying for your opponent to deal with, but you'd really rather have this be like a Sprite Mother or something else, and we're hoping to pull better cards than this. Eager Apprentice is fine for his stats, but you're not really going to trigger this ability too many times, and even when you do, this guy has to be in the battlefield, and he's not very strong and sturdy, so he's going to die pretty quickly. He's still a fairly cheap unit, so this is one of the later cuts that you would be making if you pulled a lot of good cards, but still worth mentioning in the cut section because he's just a little clunky and doesn't do all that much. Jeweled Colossus is a serviceable unit, has some pretty good abilities and stats, but for this cost, you'd much rather be playing cards like Singularity or Riptide Rex, which are both common and uncommon. Next, let's talk about the top 5 commons you are hoping to pull. First up is Riptide Rex. We just mentioned this guy. What a bomb. Huge body, destroys a huge body. Most of Lee Sen's guys are 6, although of course, if they buff them, they go to 7. Being able to deal 6 and then just send in a token to trade in on any of Lee Sen's buffed bombs is really strong, and it still leaves a bomb body left over that is super sizable and is going to be tough for either of the other decks to deal with. This guy is a premium common, and I would play 2 to 3 copies of him if I pulled them. Next up is Lecturing Yordle. As we mentioned earlier, drawing cards is really premium in this game. You don't have a lot of cards that just replace themselves, especially on play, and it doesn't cost you a power to do it. His tank is also sometimes relevant, and he helps you take points. He's just really cheap. You'd be real happy to swap out your Eager Apprentices for this guy. For cards 3 and 4, we've got Daring Poro and Watchful Sentry. You just want more 2-drops with this deck. You want to go really wide and just play a bunch of cards from your hand and finish with the stratagem. And the more cheap units you have, it just increases your chances, especially when you're second, so that you're able to play a unit plus a token. Daring Poro is just the best offensive 2-drop in the whole game, and Watchful Sentry is another card that gives you card advantage while still being able to score points in the early game. At number 5, we had to mention Hidden Blade. This deck already comes with 2 Hidden Blades, but just like Charm and Lee Sin, just like Voidseeker and Jinx, we would love to have that 3rd copy, and Hidden Blade is better than both of those other cards, especially in the limited format. Next up, we've got the top 5 uncommons. First up on the list is Singularity. You want to play as many copies of these as you can pull. If you pull 3, play 3. This spell is just not fair. It hits anywhere. It hits battlefield, it hits base. This is just one of the best removal spells in the game. It allows you to wipe out battlefields and send your tokens in easily. Next up is Sprite Mother. This is just a great turn 2 or 3 play that produces a token that's tough to deal with. Also lets you score 2 points on turn 2 if you're going first, which you always want to be doing in this game. It still leaves you with another body back at home that's going to be able to attack next turn. It does cost you a power, so be mindful of that when mapping out your future turns to make sure that you're going to have enough energy to do everything that you want to do if you send back a land early. Next up is Obelisk of Power. This is just the best battlefield in Viktor. That battlefield, especially if you can manage to pull some 2-drops, is going to ensure that you have a guaranteed win on most games where you get to pick who goes first or second. You always want to pick Obelisk of Power going first, and ideally you've picked up a lot of 2-drops, so you'll have 3 energy on turn 1, allowing you to play a 2-drop unit as well as a token, and guaranteed take 2 points the next turn. This level of point tempo is just really hard for people to deal with. Even in Constructed, this is one of the best lines you can possibly take, and in Limited, being able to do this is just next level power. Next card to mention is Retreat. This card basically helps become another copy of the bombs that you pull in your packs, or even some of the better units that you just don't want to lose in your deck. You can often think of this card as having an additional copy of one of your best guys, especially if it has an enter play ability. A great card to pair with cards like Sprite Mother or Riptide Rex to keep getting value out of those cards over and over and not lose them if your opponent was able to deal with them in a battle or with a removal spell. Overall, just a very versatile card you'd be happy to pull. Final one to mention is Imperial Decree. This card's not seeing a lot of constructed play right now, and I think that makes sense with all the options available and the way that most decks' curves are lining up. I do think in limited format, this card is just really powerful. It turns each of your tokens into a little bomb that kills any unit it hits. I think that this card is a bit of a sleeper in limited, and it's even seeing some constructed play in sideboards. Finally, let's go over the rares. Number 1 rare we gotta mention is the Thousand-Tailed Watcher. This is just one of the best cards in the game, if not the best card in the game. If you watched our top 10 video, you know that we rated this card as the best card in the game. It's definitely the best closer in the game, one of the strongest units in the game. I would play as many copies of this card as you possibly can pull. This card allows you to just obliterate your opponent's battlefields with small units or with itself because it has accelerate and can just come eat everything in a battlefield. Even if your opponent has like 12 might in a battlefield spread across 3 bodies, they're getting -9 and they become a 3, which the fox is easily able to take over. This is just another card like Grand Stratagem that helps you close the game from 6 points to 8 points quite easily, except it also helps you get a point itself because it's on a massive accelerated body. Next up is Grand Stratagem. We have one of these in the deck. We would love to have 2 or 3. This is another great closer and card that's just really hard for decks to deal with, especially in the limited format. This card just plays so well with the go wide token strategy, which our legend facilitates quite easily. Next up is Leona. This is just a very good turn 2 play. This card is going to be a powerhouse into the Lee Sin deck. They usually are only going to be playing 1 unit a turn, and it's going to be really big and buffed. And Leona just doesn't even let it deal damage back to you, so you can send Leona in along with a squad of other units, and you don't have to worry about any of them dying. And because of the shield, she just defends really nicely too. She's a sizable unit. You'd be happy to play a few of these if you pick them up. Shen is another combat trick blowout. This is a unit that can actually be played from your hand like a spell and just enter the battlefield in the middle of a chain. He also tanks and becomes a 5 when he's defending, so this is definitely a card that you want to bring in when you're defending most times, though every now and then you might need to sneak it in during an attack. Shen is an absolute blowout card versus aggressive strategies like Jinx. Finally, we've got Harness Dragon. This card is a bit late game, and you might only want to play 1 or 2 of this, but in the limited format, especially when your opponents are playing cards like Mountain Drake, this is a sizable unit that can come in and kill something no matter where it is, base or battlefield. That's just a really powerful effect. It's an answer to absolutely everything on a large unit, and it can't really be stopped by anything. And that's it. That's the end of the guide. So to review, make sure to go first if you win your dice rolls, and pick Viktor if you want to have the best deck that has the best commons and uncommons that you can pull, as well as just the best overall precon in the bunch. We hope that the guide is useful to you. Let us know in the comments if there's anything else you'd like to see from us. If you like what we're putting out and you like to support us, then please like and share this video, and please click on subscribe if you'd like to see more from us in the future. Thanks for watching.